I think we're privileged that TiE Bangalore has organized the 4th edition of Antar Prerana. And as the name suggests, this is about an entrepreneur's inner journey. This is about each of our journeys. And I'm so excited to have Dr. Pawan Soni, Dr. Prasad Kaipa, and Dr. Sanjay Tyagi with us. Each of them brings a hugely, eclectic experience profile. And I must say that we are singularly blessed to have the 3 of them with us. Dipti and I are very, very grateful, Dr. Soni, Dr. Kaipa, and Dr. Tyagi, for being here with us and to share your thoughts with this very, very interesting audience that we've got. So this particular series that we've started now is entirely based on the Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. So today and next Wednesday, we will be exploring the aspect of Dharma and the enterprise. Thereafter, we will talk about Artha and what it means to create Artha for an entrepreneur, for an enterprise. And then we'll look at Kama, and then we'll look at Moksha. How do you get liberated from anxiety, from fear? So it's going to be a nice, interesting journey for us. And I'm grateful to TiE Bangalore for giving us this opportunity, grateful to Shreya and Deepal for putting together this particular program. So let's talk so today's subject that we've chosen is, what is the Dharma of the entrepreneur and the enterprise? So first thing that we need to understand is that, there's an old Sanskrit saying that says, Dharmasya moolam artha, which means that whatever artha that we need to create has to be on the basis of dharma. Now, dharma as a concept is a very interesting concept that Indic philosophy has given to the rest of the world. Quite honestly, there is no literal translation of the word dharma. I think the closest that we can get to is what Swami Chinmayananda used to say. It's the law of the being. Okay, that every being, whether it is animate, inanimate, etc., there is a certain law that particular being has got. And dharma literally means that, that is the law of that particular being. That's the purpose of that particular being. And we need to figure that out. So let's look around us. If you look at the sun, the law of the sun, the purpose of the sun is to provide light every day in the morning. Fire is to provide a certain amount of warmth. Water is supposed to either cleanse you or quench your thirst, when you're thirsty. So every particular, if you take a particular rock, it's supposed to provide stability, even if it's an inanimate being. So there is a certain law of that particular being when it comes to its dharma. Okay, so that really is what dharma is all about. So if you look at, and I'm so happy that we've got such an interesting panel today, along with Dipti. If you look at a teacher, okay, the dharma of the teacher is to make sure that these students learn, students get inspired, get excited. That's the particular dharma. If you look at a farmer, it is to possibly grow crops, is to make sure that there is a certain amount of sustainability in the crops that you grow. If you look at a politician, then there is a certain dharma that we elect these people. They're supposed to represent the wishes of the people and create programs, policies that will help people advance their own lives, and so on and so forth. Okay, so if you look at a leader, then the dharma of that leader is to care for the people who he or she is leading, and make sure that they are being led in a particular way. So when we come down to the dharma of an entrepreneur and an enterprise, and today we will be exploring this particular aspect, okay, as to what is it that we as entrepreneurs and we as people who head enterprises, what is it that we need to follow? What is the law of our being? What is the purpose? And I'm using this word purpose very loosely, and you must indulge me on that. What is it that we need to be following in terms of as entrepreneurs, as an enterprise. So that is what we're going to be exploring in today's talk. As I said, the format of the talk is very simple. I will do a little bit of an introduction to the theme. We'll do a little reflective practice, and then we'll ask Dipti to share a shloka that we've chosen for you today and interpret that shloka. And then post that, we will invite Dr. Soni, Dr. Kaipa, and Dr. Tyagi to share their thoughts with us in terms of their own law of being, in terms of how, I mean, you heard them when they were introducing themselves as to the very eclectic experience profile that they have, and how they're doing what they're doing in life. And then we'll open it up for any Q&A that you have. So, as I said, there is no equivalent translation to this word called dharma, according to me. I've been searching around a lot. It's not religion for sure. It is not, it's a very different, different kind of a concept altogether, dharma. But I came across something very, very interesting when I was doing my reading. And when I was doing this reading, I came across some very, very interesting principles, which I thought I will share with you and see how it gets related to that of an entrepreneur, and how all of us can today reflect on some of those principles and figure out how we can use those principles in our day-to-day lives as entrepreneurs in our enterprise, and why we should do that. We'll look at that. So, according to a place that I read, there are about 10 universal principles, they say, of dharma. Okay, and this is from the Manusmriti. The first one is dhriti, which is steadfastness. As an entrepreneur, especially since we are now looking at the early stages of entrepreneurship, with the ideation stage, the startup stage, the survival stage, the sustainability stage, the first 4 stages of entrepreneurship, there are a lot of times that we get carried away. There are lots and lots and lots of inputs that we will keep getting in our life. You do this, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And I'm hoping, all our panelists, including Dipti, will be talking to us about the various inputs that they've been receiving. But we need a certain steadfastness. Steadfastness means what? The way you feel, the way you think, the way you say, the way you do must be in alignment as entrepreneurs. The second principle is kshama. Now, there's a very interesting principle. Kshama technically means forgiveness. But actually, if you look at it, okay, all of us as human beings are prone to make mistakes. We must have the ability to forgive ourselves and move on from those mistakes. Okay. As an entrepreneur, when I look back on the 44 years of my life as an entrepreneur, there are so many blunders I've committed in my life. Blunders, absolute blunders I've committed in my life. But if I get caught in those blunders and not move on, then I'm not doing justice to what I'm doing right now. Okay. Likewise, my people have committed a number of mistakes. I need to move on from there. Then we talk about dhamma, which is self-control. Now, this is again very, very important. Like the first one, not getting carried away by what is happening around us. Okay, that self-control that is required. You will have your highs, you will have your lows. And I'd like Dr. Kaipa, I know, has had a stint with Steve Jobs at Apple, and I'm sure would love to hear the incredible highs that were there at that point of time and the incredible lows that happened there. Asteya, which is non-covetousness. Okay, what does this mean? Really, the whole point is not taking credit for somebody else's job. Okay, I interpret this from this aspect, saying, I find too much of credit being stolen from people. Okay, not doing that at all. Shaucha, which is purity, which means having the kind of intentions that are good intentions, that whatever we do needs to be done. There is something called Indriya Nigraha, which means control of the senses. Now, here is something interesting. We will keep receiving inputs from a number of people, what we will hear, what we will see, what we will feel, but not getting carried away by that, keeping them under control, all those inputs that you keep getting. Dhi, which is wisdom. How do you get that wisdom? You need that wisdom. You need to reach out to people like a Dr. Kaipa or to a Dr. Tyagi or Dr. Soni and figure out, look, I need help. That's also part of your wisdom. Vidya, which is true knowledge. It's the true, genuine knowledge that you need to run your enterprise, to know about people, for instance. Satyam, which is the truth. And the last one, which is akrodha, which is not getting angry. Okay, because the minute you get angry, you kind of derail from your entire enterprise. So let's look at these simple principles: steadfastness, forgiveness, self control, not taking credit from anybody else, being pure in terms of the intentions that you want, controlling your senses, not getting carried away, seeking wisdom from people who know, from a coach, knowledge, the true knowledge that is required to run an enterprise, being true to your purpose, and finally, being calm and composed and not getting carried away by anger. So here's what I'd like you to do. Okay. I'd like you to help me and let's do a small reflective practice on this. If possible, I'd like you to close your eyes. Okay. And I want you to do a small reflective practice for about 2 to 3 minutes. Okay. I want you to think, what activity makes you feel alive, makes you feel extremely energetic? What is that one activity that makes you feel, oh, wow, this is it? Okay. I want you to think of that particular activity. Okay, take a deep breath in, release all the tensions of the day, and just think of that one activity that makes you feel alive in what you do. This is not about your role. This is not about your responsibility. This is not about your enterprise. This is about you. What is that activity that makes you feel alive? Is it about meeting people? You just think about that. With a smile on your face, just reflect. Which of these principles that we just talked about just now, which of that comes into play when you're doing that activity? Which of these, or what strengths comes into place? Is it being steadfast? Is it self-control? Is it purity? Is it wisdom? Is it being true to your purpose? Which of these aspects helps you when you feel alive, when you feel energetic? Now just think of an activity tomorrow that you need to perform, a difficult activity, a difficult conversation that you need to have with someone. Can you bring this feeling of being alive into that activity? Can you project it there? So whenever you're ready, if you can just open your eyes and come back into the room. The point is, it is this aspect of being alive, of being energetic, and this value, this principle, this strength of yours, if you can bring it together in every enterprise, then you really are creating an enterprise which is based on certain values, certain strengths that you have as an entrepreneur, and you're bringing it to your enterprise. If this is the case, then let me bring Dipti in now, and let us share a shloka that we've chosen for you. Dipti, can you see the shloka? Dipti, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Dipti.
यद्यदाचरति श्रेष्ठः तत देवेतरो जनः सत् सत् स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते lokastadanuvartate. Whatever actions great persons perform, common people follow. Whatever standards they set, all the world pursues. This slok is nothing but highlights that action speaks louder than the words. When an entrepreneur who is the leader of an organization, whatever the entrepreneur does, whatever he imbibes, the people down the line imbibe the same. They follow and they go by the example that is set by the entrepreneur. In Sanskrit, there is a phrase which says "Yatha Raja Tatha Praja." Just as the king, so is the people, so is the kingdom, people of the kingdom. Which means that if and in an entrepreneur, if the leader of the enterprise is the entrepreneur, if that entrepreneur leads by example, the values, the ethics, the acharana, that is the behavior, the actions that entrepreneur does, then that gets trickled down to the bottom of the line, and people start emulating the leader. They start adopting the values and the ethics of the entrepreneur. And it is in this sense that the culture of the organization is built. And therefore, every entrepreneur, and this should start right from the beginning, the day one when your startup is beginning, and to set this as an example. Because if you want your people to behave or have certain values, then you have to do it yourself. Set the example, walk the talk, as we say. And therefore, every time and when you're starting an entrepreneur and when you're starting an enterprise, you need to see and be very mindful of your actions, because your actions influence your people. Thank you. Over to you now.
Look at the beauty of the shloka that we've chosen for you. Yad yad acharati shreshtaha. I mean, this whole business of acharati is just beyond, what you're doing and what you're performing. Okay. And Shrestha is who? Is you as the entrepreneur, as the leader of the entire enterprise. So whatever you do, whatever actions you perform, whatever you say, whatever way you behave, you become the gold standard for the enterprise. You remember we started off this whole thing by saying steadfastness, which is what you feel, what you think, what you say, what you do. It's got to be an alignment. And then we go on to say Tatta Devatarojana, which means that all the people, everybody in the organization will follow that. Because that is the example that you've set. And he says, Sayat Pramanam Kurute, which is whatever standards that you set is what the world will pursue, what the world is actually going to be looking at and will do for you. Why do we need to do this? At the end of the day, when we look at why did we set up this enterprise? Okay, why did I set up Born to Win, for instance? Or why did I go and set up this company? Or why did Pawan go and set up this company of his? Why is Dr. Tyagi continuing to work with STPI? Why does Dr. Prasad Kaipa do what he does with the Indic, Institute of Indic Wisdom? All of us are doing it because of a certain purpose. Ultimately, we want to create an enterprise that is a happy enterprise. And it is a happy enterprise that will be a growing enterprise. What is the meaning of a happy enterprise? A happy enterprise, according to me, is that if you're in a state of happiness, then you're not performing any duty. You're doing it because you love what you do. So the dharma of an entrepreneur, the dharma of the enterprise, is very, very closely interlinked. Our being, our law of being, is entirely about creating that enterprise, and that enterprise then continues to fuel it. There are two very beautiful words that I'd like to share with you and then bring in our lovely panel. The first is this whole thing called Atma Tripti, which means how can you be satisfied with what you have? That every day that you come and you work, you're absolutely satisfied with the output that you're giving it. I was talking to Dr. Kaipa last week, and he was giving me a very interesting thing, saying we must change the word from success to accomplishment. And that brings me to the next concept, which is Atmarati. When you rejoice, not only you, but when everybody in the enterprise start rejoicing in what is happening in the enterprise. So can we create this enterprise, which is fundamentally a happy place, where people want to come and contribute, where people are saying, look, we want to create joy at work. I mean, this whole concept of joy at work, happiness at work is something which is relatively new. But these are concepts that we've been working on for the last so many years, saying, how do we create happiness at work? How do we create joy at work? What are the small things that can be done in which we can create that joy at work, when we can create that happiness at work? Is this something that is possible? 100%. Is this sustainable? Absolutely. So whatever be the stage of your enterprise right now, whether you are at an ideation stage or a startup stage or a survival stage, and I can understand, we've all been through those phases in life when, you're questioning everything that you're doing. And when people are questioning you and saying, are you doing what you're doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? And everybody is trying to give you an input saying, I think you should be doing this differently. I think you should do this differently, etc., etc. And that is the time when this purpose of yours must kick in, of creating an enterprise that is a joy. Because remember one very important point, people will want to come and work with people who they see are being happy, whether it is an investor, whether it is a co-founder, whether it is a stakeholder, whether it is a vendor, a supplier, a partner, whoever it be. They all want to come and work in places where they believe the enterprise will deliver what it is supposed to be delivering, which is happiness. So keep this in mind, that at the end of the day, it is we who lead, and that is our dharma. Our law of being is to lead organizations in a way that our people will love coming to work in the morning. Okay? Can you imagine a time when every Monday morning becomes something that the person will look forward to, rather than turn around and say on Saturday night, Sunday night, that I'm hugely depressed that tomorrow morning is Monday and I've got to get back to work? I think that is the difference that we can think of. So if we can bring this aspect of being alive, of that energy that we want into every activity that we do, and if we can cascade that down within the organization, I think that is the day we can turn around and say that, yes, my dharma as an entrepreneur and the dharma of the enterprise is being met, or I'm working towards that. So with that, I'd love to ask our fantastic panel that we've put together here. I'd like to bring them in, and I'd like to start with Dr. Prasad Kaipa, who's not just an accomplished person from the corporate world, but has also spent a lot of time. Dr. Kaipa, your thoughts on how our participants here can bring this energy on a day-to-day basis, and any stories that you'd like to share, sir. Dr. Kaipa?
Thank you very much, Ram. I think there are 2-3 things that come to my mind. One is recognizing that joy actually connects to your strength. When we are joyful, naturally we do what we are very good at, what we are very strong at. Not only that, when we are joyful, we are most creative. Considering that innovation is the lifeblood of entrepreneurial venture. So if you can help people to be happy to do what they are doing, then you are tapping into their innate creativity without even you asking them, because that releases, the kind of hormones, even neurologically, people talk about. When people are happy, the kind of neurotransmitters and the kind of hormones that are operating, and the amygdala not necessarily in a anxiety situation, people become much more creative. So when you are happy and when you are operating out of your strengths and when you are creative, chances are whatever you do, it comes from within you, and that is not something that you try to do for money. You don't try to do it for something else, but that is the dharma, as you mentioned, Ram, what is naturally flowing out of you, flourishing you, that comes out. Chances are when you do that, that becomes authentic, that is not easily replicable, and that has got a genuine way in which you can take it to bank, because nobody else in the planet is you. Okay, now I gave you theory. Let me give you an example. I was a physicist in University of Utah, and I was also working on a computer committee in the initial stages of Apple and Microsoft and IBM PC, as they call it at that time, 1980s, early 1980s. I'm talking 1982, 83 time period. I had an opportunity to attend a meeting where the university was meeting one of the computer manufacturers who offered 50% discount if we standardize our entire faculty, staff, and everybody on their computers. So I went to the meeting, and then that's the first time I ended up meeting Steve Jobs. So because University of Utah Computer Vision Department was one of the top in the world, so he wanted us to be part of what is called a Apple University Consortium, the top 10 universities where he was going to offer faculty, staff, and students 50% discount, and encouraging us to develop various applications and various other things that we can develop, and we can become entrepreneurs ourselves. But what was amazing was that while I was excited about what he was saying, but the reality that struck me was that Apple never delivered product on time. And most of the features that they announce are going to be version 2, version 3, version 4, but never at the initial stage. And and I just had put my hands on a new computer which was going to be much cheaper, a K-Pro or a Osborne, some of those. Then, so I raised those questions to Steve Jobs, and that made his face really red. And essentially, words flew out of his mouth. Some of them are not publicly consumable. And basically he was saying, what the do you know about computers? And you are telling me that this K-Pros and Osborns and IBM PCs compete with what we do. I stood my ground. I said, if you can deliver something that is really even 1/10 of what your marketing pitch is, I would love to buy it. He walked out so angry and all of it. But what was good was, in about 3 to 4 weeks, I got a beta version of a Macintosh. 128K kilobytes, not giga, not mega, but kilobytes. It had a 400 kilobytes floppy drive. There was no hard disk. And it had a 5-inch screen and black and white, of course. And it had only 2 applications, Mac Paint and Mac Write. He sent me some beta version of Multiplan, which later became Microsoft Excel, and one game. But was amazing thing on MacDraw, there was a kind of a graphics, not a graphics like a paint program, but it was like a vector graphics program. Interestingly, in next month, I had so much fun with it. all my scientific work, which I was doing on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I ended up doing all of them on the Macintosh. And essentially, people were surprised because that was the first, what you call what you see is what you get kind of a computer. Next thing I know, in a couple of years, I was invited to go work for Apple, because that brought so much of joy, and I was very creative. I had created all kinds of startup related stuff, star applications and all of them. And they invited me to go work for Apple again. So that I thought about and said physics versus computers. Though I was doing extraordinarily well, actually one of my co-authors of paper became a Nobel laureate later. I could have stayed in physics, but I ended up going to Apple, and I felt that is what was my Swadharma. And in doing so, after I came out of Apple also, I worked with, yes, I created a couple of startups. I worked with a large number of startups. And I did realize my creativity was the highest in Apple, and it was connected with my joy, and it was connected with my strengths, even though I didn't have an MBA. I didn't have any connection with the computers before I did that. So to summarize, I would say if you are an entrepreneur, if you need to create world-class products and sell something, or if you are trying to do something meaningful, don't do it because it was a job. Don't do it because there is money. Yes, that will come. All of the other things which you want will happen. But what will make that happen is for you to practice what you are preaching and enjoy what you are doing and use all your strengths to meet the needs of other people. And starting with, like in Apple, we used to ask yourself, when we say, who will be using this product? We used to have a Fred, a 14-year-old imaginary person. How will Fred use this? What will Fred do with it? We always had somebody in mind. And sometimes we also looked at it and said, will I be proud to buy this computer myself? Will I use this phone myself? Will it give me joy? So if you can use some of these, chances are that you will act out of your Swadharma, and what you do will be out of practice. You will inspire other people. Yad yad acharati sreshtaha. That is what you will practice doing.
Fantastic.
And I think that is where I believe maybe Dr. Pawan Soni could come in.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Can I bring in Dr. Soni, please? Dr. Pawan Soni, your thoughts. How do you create this situation by which people would love to follow you? I mean, as a researcher, as somebody who's done this, your thoughts, sir.
Absolutely, fantastic. Dr. Kai, I appreciate your story. So when you joined Apple, I hope Steve Jobs did not have any misgivings for you.
No, none.
Glad.
I'm really happy. Even after 35 years after quitting Apple, I still talk as if I'm still with Apple. So that is what I think some of the characteristics Ram mentioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Maybe he spent 6 months in India. That's the reason why.
Sure.
Right. So one of the philosophies of entrepreneurship is what we call as a prime mover. And as engineers would understand, the prime mover is what gets the machine cranking. Now, predominantly, whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee, you could possibly have 4 prime movers in your life. Now, for the majority chunk of people who are working in a job, a gigantic prime mover is fear. You are early to the office, you want to beat the traffic, you want to sit into a meeting, you want to hang around till your bosses are in because of fear. Now, fear is a very primordial motive, and we are sitting in this room right now because of the fear that our ancestors had. Because our ancestors were extremely paranoid. If I were to choose between a shrub being moved by a viper versus wind, I would rather choose a snake, because the downside of choosing wind is not high, but the downside of not is extremely high. So that is where the fear is a big motivator for many people even now. And I guess the only problem with fear is that it exhausts you. So if fear is what motivates people to show up at a job or to start an organization, the challenge is that you get exhausted very quickly. And the people whom you espouse in the organization is also owing to fear. I recently met a founder of a company who said with the sense of pride that one of the very important philosophies that we have in our organization is that we say to employee on day one, if you can't work on the weekends, don't apply. And I think that is, in their mind, a great philosophy in terms of organizational coherence, but I know that these are finite. So that's fear for you. The second piece is where the employee transitions from being an employee to an entrepreneur is called as greed. Now, sitting in the city of Bangalore, I'm not immune to greed, and we have seen mighty rises and even glorious fails right in this very city and in the pin code where I'm sitting right now, Baiju being a case in point. Now, when people start an organization on their own, it is not fear that motivates them. It's not that they were reduced to being an entrepreneur, they aspire to be an entrepreneur, and predominantly what they drive themselves into is greed. Greed is good, but the only challenge with greed is that you never know what is good enough. It also leaves you high and dry. And then you also seek people who are greedy, and that's the reason we see a lot of entrepreneurs splitting up, the founders and co-founders. Very famously, as in the case of Steve Jobs, he being ousted by his own company, by the very employee, Jeff Scully, whom he hired. So that was the challenge with greed. So fear exhausts you, greed keeps you high and dry. The third is the big motivation that people have is duty. Now, many people do work from a sense of duty. And if you ask entrepreneurs, they don't lament saying that it's my baby, it's my child. They almost figuratively think of their creation and personify as their own baby. And they show up for the sense of duty to their investors, duty to their employees, and duty to themselves. But the problem with duty as a driver in life is that duty always seeks reciprocity. You show up till there is a reciprocity. Even a doctor on the flight is not attending a medical case out of greed, let me make some few bucks on air, or fear. It's a duty. And what he or she is expecting is not monetary, but at least a sense of appreciation. And the day appreciation is withdrawn, he or she may not be a doctor enough. So as we saw, fear, greed, and duty have finite shelf life and a cost. The most pious, the most pure sense of driver that one could possibly have, in my humble opinion, is love. If you are driven predominantly from a source of love, so in the fear, the saying is, if I don't do it. In greed, the saying is, if I do it more. In duty, the saying is, I must do it. And in love, the saying is, I just do it. So if you can identify what you predominantly are in love with, money and other things will flow. Only yesterday at IIM Bangalore, I was talking to a bunch of 150 women entrepreneurs as a part of NSRC. And one of the predominant drivers that we had in the discussion was a sense of freedom, not just financial freedom, but also freedom of choice. But the freedom of choice also leaves you that once you feel free, the question is, what next? And this myth that I want to be free and that is the reason I'm starting a business remains a myth, because the moment you start an organization, you're not as free as you thought you would be. Suddenly, you are singularly accountable to pay the salaries on time, to deliver the product on time, and to have the returns on investment on time. Because as an entrepreneur, you're predominantly a salesperson. You're selling career to employees, you're selling dream to yourself, and products to your customers. Now, three things which I would like to park to my audience right now in terms of how do you go about starting an enterprise which offers you a chance in the posterity. Because I believe the secret wish that all of us have is immortality. And since time immemorial, there have been three drivers of immortality: art, science, and enterprise. Art is what Da Vinci and Michelangelo choose. Science is what Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein chose, and enterprise is what Ratan Tata chose. Now, if you're choosing enterprise, then I think the real success of an enterprise, if it can outlive you. If an enterprise cannot outlive you, what you're doing basically is a hobby. It's not an enterprise. And I would just leave you with three perspectives on what would that be that would outlive. The first and the foremost aspect has to be that it is not passion. It is passion plus mastery, and passion plus mastery plus money. what happens is that many people think of their enterprises as the long shed of their own selves, which is a good idea. But then what happens is that if you're not doubling down in terms of gaining adequate mastery, it just doesn't amount to much. That's the first and the foremost thing, which is to develop mastery in your enterprise. And you don't develop mastery to accrue disproportionate profits. You accrue mastery because by accruing mastery, you're able to leverage your innate talent to the fullest. Now, that can happen through formal education or even informal education. That's the first piece. Develop mastery in your enterprise. The second thing is scale. Now, often people think that if I'm not scaling a company, I'm doing bad. But there is nothing in the world that has to indefinitely scale. A giraffe reaches a certain height. A dinosaur also reaches a certain height. Any tree reaches a certain height. It's only in the business that we do not know what is your optimal height. So if people can abstain from this proclivity that unless I amass people and unless I clock an organic growth rate quarter on quarter, I'm not doing good enough, I think we have to really come out of that mental trap. If you have a boutique organization in which you are happy running it as a boutique organization, don't fall for the trap of starting a franchise. Because most people, and as David Packard, the founder of Hewlett Packard, very eloquently said, that most startups die not because of starvation, they die because of indigestion. That's the second point. So the first point is gaining mastery. The second point is not chasing scale. Scale kills you more than starvation does. And the third piece, which I would like you to think about as an entrepreneur, is with regards to that, am I creating a sense of aspiration in people? Now, if I go back to the history of innovation, right from the Dark Ages to the Enlightenment era and the Industrial Age to the two wars and then the Cold War, the seed of innovation is either aspiration, as in putting a man on the moon, or desperation, as in the Cold War era. At any rate, either you are having an aspiration given to the organization, and we have this phenomenal case back in India where ISRO is there, and we have a sense of desperation, which is another phenomenal case back in India called DRDO. Both the places are innovating in their own realms. It's only a funny thing that while we are putting a man on the moon to ISRO, but we are not able to put a spacecraft in the skies at the case of DRDO. And this can't be more telling that in the long run, it is not the desperation. So if you can create a sense of delta in the organization and show them the big picture as to why we are here, I think many times the leaders and the entrepreneurs don't present the why often enough to the people, that why am I here? Why am I doing this? Is it about making money, showing myself pretty at the end of this quarter, or there is a bigger picture to that? And as I'll just close with this famous quote by Napoleon Bonaparte, as Napoleon, the French warrior, very famously quipped, that a man would not give you a minute of his time, but he'll give you his entire life for a colored ribbon. So if you can show the colored ribbon in the sense of a medallion to the person, he lays entire life. So as an entrepreneur, if you have not hammered into people's head that we are here for a bigger cause, and you do it on a daily basis incessantly till you're tired speaking, I think people don't move, because then they have to align yourself. And that is where I go back to the shloka, that it is your deed and the repetition of the ulterior objective which transcends the fear, the greed, and sense of duty. And this can only happen if at the first place you are not chasing glory, but you're chasing what you genuinely love. And then you attract people who love precisely what you are doing. So that's my submission.
Thank you so much, Dr. Soni. Fantastic. Very nice. Let me ask my good friend, Dr. Sanjay Tyagi, to please weigh in on this. Dr. Tyagi?
Thank you, Ram, for taking me in. And when you ask me that you close your eyes and find one of the attributes which you have mentioned after 5 or 6, I saw the purity, the attribution, which excites me the most. And when you go with the purity of thoughts, purity of the objectives, then actually that takes you towards that tells you what is your dharma. So dharma itself, can be explained only when you have the right objectives in place. And those objectives have been made with the purity of heart, purity of mind, and in a very collaborative way. And that is why in the government of India, when we liberalized the economy in 1991, it was with the very purity of thoughts, and the objectives were very clear in front of us, that what we have to create, what we are looking for. But we were not knowing where we will reach. Things have evolved over a period of time. We should give flexibility to ourselves. We should give enough room to ourselves that we should not overcommit anything. And I think all these rules are true for the entrepreneurship as well. We conceive something, we find out what should be our objective. And if we always say, retrospectively, we find that our objectives are also keep on evolving over a period of time. Our dharma was also changing over a period of time. Dharma is also evolving over a period of time, right? So short objectives, and following those objectives with a lot of dharma, with a lot of purity, and understand that who are those stakeholders to whom you have to facilitate. You don't have to compel those stakeholders to follow their dharma, but you have to only follow your dharma to make sure that these stakeholders are being benefited whatever you do every day in your life. For STPI, the stakeholders were many. The stakeholders were all the entrepreneurs were the stakeholders. All the ecosystem partners were the stakeholders. So we have to motivate and talk to them to make sure that they also fall in the line with the objectives which we have in our organization. So slowly, we found that our dharma is expanding, and their dharma is also expanding. And at one point of time, we all merged into one dharma in single objectives by all the stakeholders. We joined hands, and ultimately we had a single objectives in our life. So that is how we can create our parameters of growth in collaboration with the ecosystem. Until unless we will not do, we will not be able to grow. Neither you will be able to grow, nor your stakeholders will be able to grow. The another point which I would like to tell you, when you were explaining about the commitments of the different people, whether it is an entrepreneur or it is a politician or anybody else, you forget, to add the bureaucrat also into it. So we also have a lot of commitment towards the larger objective of society. And until unless we all will not align ourselves with those objectives, we won't be able to fulfill our dharma. Secondly, when I'm saying that the objectives are evolving, they all are evolving in the positive direction. We cannot have it, in a downgrading direction. We cannot have our objective to evolve. If today I'm saying that I am a startup, tomorrow I have to move towards becoming an MSME. Maybe tomorrow I have to grow up to a full corporate and organization. And then we have to see that how the benefit of this company can reach out to the larger audience, to the larger stakeholders in the country. And that is why everybody, have started as a startup. If you take the example of the Infosys, they were a startup when they started. And they have grown in 25 years, they have become the Infosys, which we are, by what the Infosys is. So that examples we have right now, after 35 years of our journey in this country, entrepreneurial journey, especially in the IT and IT services domain, we know there are many examples which we have in front of us. And today the startup ecosystem is very, very lucky that they have so many examples in front of them to whom they can evaluate, and they can find out in which direction they have to go and they have to grow. So probably there is not one recipe for everybody, but because in the last 35 years, a lot of capacity building which has happened in our country, and one very most important capacity building which has happened is the aspirational capacity building. And today and that is why we are seeing that lot of startups are being registered, a lot of entrepreneurs are trying having that confidence in them, uh, so that they can become a big entrepreneur. So I think this is a evolving journey, and we have to keep on learning. We have to keep on evolving in dharma, in our objectives, and probably if you will do that, you will rejoice whatever you do, and your workplace will automatically will become a happy workplace. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Tyagi. Dipti, would you like to share something?
So I see a common thread here between Ram, what you said about how do we create a happiness and joy in the work that you do, between that and a common thread with what Dr. Soni said about loving what you do. So when you do what you love, and that's when your happiness quotient and comes in, like Prasad Kayappa said, that I enjoyed working for your
Apple.
Apple, and even today he lives those moments, right? So that happiness comes when you love what you do, and to that extent I feel there is some kind of a common thread in all the conversations that we are having, and sticking to the purpose what we are that the entrepreneur has. Why is definitely an important. If you don't know what why of your business, then you don't get the direction. So yes, there is a common thread and common lining which line which is there in all the three all the panelists that have they have shared. The only thing I would say is that when you're looking from a unique for a startup, while yes, scaling up is important, like Tyagi sir said that you got to move to MSME, but every startup doesn't have to be a unicorn. you know it is okay if you're just at a certain level and you are enjoying what you are doing, and that inner satisfaction, the inner peace or the inner happiness is good enough for you to exist in that business.
All right. Thank you, Dipti. So let me ask all our panelists a quick one. What is a daily practice that our participants can do? I mean, all of you, I truly, truly appreciate love at work, joy at work, love what you do, keep evolving. What is one practice that our participants can do on a day-to-day basis to keep this quotient high? If you remember when I said, how will you bring that, when you feel alive, when you feel energy every day into what you do? Okay. What is one practice, a quick hack that can be shared? And let me start with, who should I start with? Dr. Soni. What is one hack that people can do every day?
Yeah, sure. So there was this very interesting conversation between Bill Clinton and Tony Blair. When Bill Clinton was the president of US, he once invited Tony Blair to the White House. And in the conversation, this is something Tony Blair shares in a Stanford interview, which is very interesting. So Bill Clinton took Tony Blair on the side, and he said that I want to tell you something very, very important. And Tony Blair thought that Clinton is sharing the nuclear codes or something like that. So he asked Tony Blair that in a given day, what is your strategic time? And this was very important. He said that as a president of US or a prime minister of UK, your day goes by between meetings, and the agenda that you come to the office with gets lost amid the day-to-day affair. So you're hopping from one meeting to another meeting, one call to another call, and by the time your term gets over and you look back at your term, nothing stands out. So what is very important for any leader, let alone the entrepreneur, is on a daily basis, you have to take time out to look at strategic issues. You should never confuse strategy with tactics. So while the investors would be wanting a good return at the end of every quarter, employees would need salary by the end of every month. But the real big ticket item that you and only you can think, you must take out time on a daily basis to think. So the first claim on your calendar has to be yours, and not that you're jostling for your own time on your own calendar, which I've seen many people. And actually, many people think of it as a label of pride that my calendar is booked or overbooked rather. So I think if you can take half an hour, 45 minutes on a daily basis as your strategic time out, you're thinking about the direction in which the whole ship is heading. Are we heading in the right direction? Are we looking at the big ticket items? And am I delivering what I promised to myself when I started this company on a daily basis so that you can do course correction? If you don't take the time out, nobody in the organization is bothered about that time out. So I think that is one very fundamental aspect, that you deserve your strategic time first, and then people should be for the leftover.
Wonderful. What a nice thought. Dr. Tyagi, one hack that our panelists, our participants can take back and practice from
Well,
the
I will still say, Ram, that we should think big. And I can quote Mr. N. Vittal, my first secretary of my Department of Electronics, who conceived the STPI, and he was the father figure for all of us. He used to tell very wonderful story in a very jokingly. He used to say that once a king was scolding his daughter, and he said that if you will not study well or you will not perform this task, I will get you married to a washerman. And somehow that washerman was listening. And from that day onwards, he started dreaming about that he will be one day get married to the princess. You know, so the whole objective of telling this story by him was that whether washerman got married to the princess or not one day, but we should have always dreamed very, very big, and we should assume that why not we can also become a Bill Gates one day. I will tell to all the entrepreneurs that until unless you will not think big, you know, uh, I mean, we do not know how the Steve Jobs used to think, and we had luckily Dr. Prasad with us, he will tell us. But they have thought at some point of time that they will strive for the excellence in their lifetime, and they have achieved it in their lifetime. You know, Steve Jobs was very young; he has gone. He was not even 60 probably. But in their very small lifetime, they have achieved those things. So you have to keep on setting up the large targets, large goals, and until unless you will not set up, you will not be able to, find out what is your next, course of action. All
Right.
those course corrections will start happening as soon as you will set a larger target. So think big. Every day think big, and you will achieve it. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Tyagi. Dr. Kaipa?
I think those are some wonderful suggestions Dr. Pawan and Dr. Sanjay had given. The only thing I can add to what both of them suggested is, why are you actually running the startup? Don't forget that. Because you will have so many opportunities every day to do a variety of things. And they are very easy to, distract you, seduce you from why you started, what you started. If you forget the fundamental purpose and keep looking at what the market says, what the investors say, what the customers say, what something else, and then start doing something other than your strength, something other than what gives you joy, something other than what you feel you can contribute yourself, then the entire game gets lost. So keep asking, why am I doing what I'm doing? Okay. So it looks like purpose question, but what that does for you, it purifies your heart. Your emotion becomes clear about why you are doing. Why, once your heart is pure, the clarity comes to your head very nicely. So purity of heart gives you clarity of thought. And both of them begin with, why am I doing what I am doing? Don't lose sight of it.
Fantastic. Super. Dipti, one quick hack.
We're
And then I'm
talking-
going to open it up to
Yeah.
the audience.
Since we are talking about a hack that can be used daily, I would just like to extend what Prasad Kaipa said. An extension to that, while you think about it, every day, if looking at yourself, if you can say that, what is my dharma today towards the enterprise, towards the towards my startup that I have started. If I know why I'm doing it, What is my dharma today? What I need to do?
All right, fantastic. So we've got some very, very interesting inputs, and let me just share with you all my experiences on what you guys talked about. There's a gentleman called Sunil Alagh, who took Britannia into a totally new, uncharted territory, converted it from a biscuit company to a food company. Sunil once told me that every day he spends 3 hours, Dr. Soni, locked up in an empty room with no windows, just a sofa. And he used to sit for 3 hours only pondering on one subject. And to add to what just to link it up to what Dr. Tyagi said and Dr. Kaipa said, he arrived at his purpose in life. You know what was his purpose, Dr. Kaipa? He said, my purpose is to make sure that 1 in 3 Indians will consume a Britannia product. Dr. Tyagi, you can't get bigger than that. Okay? That 1 in 3 Indians will consume a product. And like what Dipti was talking about, this whole issue of purpose, and Dr. Soni was saying about time. He said, I used to lock myself up in this room. No windows, nothing, no painting, nothing to distract me, just a sofa to sit on. And I used to sit there and I used to think, what do I need to do to get 1 in 3 Indians to buy my product? Obviously, biscuits are not going to help me. And therefore, dairy started. And therefore, cake started. And therefore, the small, you remember those tiger biscuits, 1 rupee for 4 biscuits, that chota little pack that came up. Okay. So that everybody who has tea, and that whole thing went on. Just to again, talk about another gentleman that I met who taught me about purpose, Dr. Kaipa, was Dr. Kurian Varghese of Amul. And he used to say, Dr. Tyagi, that the reason why I'm in this business is very simple. Like Dipti said, why are you in this business? The reason I'm in the business, the most important person in the room for me is that lady who gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning, milks the cow, and makes sure that that milk is taken to a collection center. From then on, Amul starts. If that lady is not there for me, then there is nothing. Because you as consumers will shift from one brand of chocolate today to another brand of chocolate tomorrow. You will go from one ice cream to another ice cream. You'll buy Amul butter today. You'll go to buy some other butter day after tomorrow. To me, that lady is the most important person in the room. So my purpose, as you said, Dr. Kaipa, is to focus on that lady in the morning to get up, milk the cow, clean the cow, milk the cow, take the milk, give it to the collection center. So the whole point is that, if you look at all these enterprises, if you look at all these people, all of them, thought big, but they jammed into this dharma of the entrepreneur and the enterprise. And what you said very nicely, sir, think big, think of your purpose, create the time that is required to focus on that. I love what you said, that in your calendar, you are the most important person. What we're talking now of me time, which is becoming so very popular, is there. So with that, let me open it up to the audience. You can please type in your question on the chat box. Deepal, will you please enable the chat box so that our audience...
It's enabled, Ram.
Yeah, fantastic. So our audience can keep asking any questions that you have. You can ask it. You can have a general question. You can have an observation, anything at all. And I'll request our panelists to weigh in on that. So while you're typing your questions on, how to work on these 3 issues, creating the time, etc., etc., Deepal, can you also please post? Thank you, Deepal. Deepal has also posted the LinkedIn handles of all the panelists. You can, if any of you wants to connect with them, you can send them a connection request and they'd be very happy to deal with you. But to come back to our panel while the questions are being typed in, let me ask a question to you, Dr. Kaipa. All of us are curious about your experience with Mr. Steve Jobs. Any quick reflection on that, sir?
I found he was amazing and challenging person to work with. And he was amazing because his vision was very inspiring. He was challenging because whatever he asks, first 3 days, 3 months, sometimes for people 3 years, we can't deliver it. It's not easy because he asks for the impossible. He asks for the moon. He doesn't ask for anything short of it. But when we raise to the occasion, when we can deliver to what he is asking, you don't need his approval anymore. You are already world's best. So there was something about challenging people in your entrepreneurial organization to be their best, challenging to go beyond their conditioning, beyond their limited way of thinking, limited way of doing. I think that will help people to be successful, not only for your organization, but also for themselves, because you're opening up a door to them that is rarely opened by anybody else. That's what I learned from.
Fantastic. So we've got some lovely questions. As I told you, this is a very, very interesting group of people who will keep asking us nice, interesting questions. So first question, let me direct it to Dr. Tyagi. Fail fast versus persist till you succeed. This is Stephen who's asking us this question. Thank you, Stephen. Dr. Tyagi, fail fast versus persist till you succeed. How do you choose between these two in the context of dharma?
So persistence has to be there, but if you are trying different I will not say fail. Entrepreneurs, when an entrepreneur fail, he learns something out of it. So there is a lot of value addition is happening when you are failing. But when you will say that you have failed, you are stopping somewhere. But don't call it you are failing there. You are actually learning and amending your ways to a new model or to a new evolution. You are inculcating the evolution in your path. So fail fast, yes, in terms of changing the idea, in terms of the trying something uh, which you are discussing with your mentors and they are amending yourself. So your idea which you have started with, and then by the time you are implementing it, there will be a lot of changes in those ideas, and you should be quick enough to adopt those changes in your life. So you have to persist, but you have to amend yourself on the way.
Fantastic. Dr. Kaipa, fail fast versus persist till you succeed. How do you choose between these two in the context of dharma?
See, fail fast is an extraordinarily important entrepreneurial success principle. Whether you will succeed or not is immaterial, but if you are not willing to fail fast, whatever you do will not be meaningful anyway. So first thing is try it, because if you don't try something new, your chances of failure is almost less. So take risk. Take big risks first and small risks later, because big risks will give you either big rewards or a big failure that will help you to learn the biggest lesson, and then you can deal with small stuff later. And the question of persist till you succeed, you will have to keep attempting to learn whatever from your failures. The kind of success you get may not be what you intended in the beginning. If you can learn from that, you will make the course correction along the way, because whatever you designed may not be something customer wants anymore by the time you design it. So it is important to recognize you keep trying, failing, open up to your context and learn from it, then you will succeed, but you may not be persisting what you began with. Thank you.
Perfect. Let me take the next one to Pavan Soni ji and Dipti. Question is Nishkam. This is Umesh, Rudrapatna. Umesh, thank you so much for asking that question. Dr. Soni, Nishkama karma versus love. Do they converge, or is the difference is very big?
So I think so when I distinguish love from greed, let us take an example of mother. Okay. Now, a mother has all the four acting towards the baby. The mother is afraid that what if there is a fear, what if I do something wrong? There is a greed that my child should take care of me when I become old. There is a sense of duty that I need to cook for my child. But underlying all of this, there is a sense of love. So in any given day, never assume that 8 hours of day can be love. It is impossible. You can never have 8 hours of day as love. But there has to be some time of love in that 8 hours so that you can survive that 8 hours of work. For example, when I write a book, all the four factors play. I have a fear. What if my book doesn't do well? What if I'm not able to turn my manuscript on time? There is a greed that the book should do well. There is a duty towards my publisher. But why I can endure the entire journey of writing a book is because I love writing. So when you ask me to close my eyes, Rama, what I was remembering is only two things. One is teaching, and second is writing. Writing and teaching are the two activities which I am absolutely in love with and something which I would do. So I think if you can have that singular understanding and ensure that you can endure the remaining part, if you are steadfast on that one aspect and not dilute it and not corrupt it, this is what the world expects from you. For instance, often people ask me that why don't I quit my company and be a full-time faculty at IMB, because that's more secure job. Or they ask me that why don't I expand my company and add more people and have a large enterprise so that you can have more workshops done. And both these options are very distasteful to me because I think the moment I get into that, I lose the very reason why I started this organization. So that is how you can distinguish from Nishkam Karma and a sense of love.
Fantastic. Dipti?
So I'll just take a Bhagavad Gita concept of Nishkam Karma. The Gita says that when you are doing a Nishkam Karma out of love, because there is no distinction in the sense, if there is no love, then the Nishkam Karma doesn't happen. Because Nishkam Karma means that you are not going after any result. Though you know that there will be a result, you're going to accept the result, positive, negative, whatever it is. Yeah. So unless and until there is love, Nishkam Karma doesn't happen. And to get into that stage, you need to practice Nishkam Karma. Initially, it may happen that there is some amount of greed, and if that result doesn't turn up, you may be disappointed. But over a period, as you practice and you get certain amount of satisfaction of doing the work itself, enjoying the work itself, then the love is there.
Wonderful. Super. So I think we've got some very, very interesting thoughts on this. Okay. I think Deepal has put out a form. Okay, fantastic. Wonderful answers. Any last thoughts, Dr. Tyagi, Dharma of the Entrepreneur? Just a quick one, maybe a minute.
So I think you started by telling the entrepreneurial dharma. So once we have committed to a journey, we should be completing that journey, and we have to give a very, very logical conclusion to this journey. And there are many challenges during the entrepreneurial journey, which is obvious. But if we have the if we have the right people with whom we are getting mentorship, which is amply available in today's society, in today's environment, we should look for that, and we should try to mend our ways, but we should always keep very high objectives, and we should make sure that from the government perspective, we provide a lot of, we formulate as per our dharma, we formulate the government of India policies to provide a lot of encouragement to the entrepreneurship. And then they should also feel that once they have taken all those benefits and commitments from the government, they should also strive for a bigger success, so that for the larger commitment, not only for their employee, but for their country should be fulfilled. So once that larger objective will be in their mind, probably they will be more at peace, and they know that there are many stakeholders for whom they have to work hard, including the government.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Dr. Kaipa, last quick word.
Yeah.
Dharma of the entrepreneur.
Dharma of the entrepreneur is to keep doing what they love and what they believe they have the unique way of creating, marketing, and selling it. Whether they end up with a large amount of money or funding, or they become big or small, it doesn't matter. Because when you are creating what you are creating and it is being received well by the customer and it is being enjoyed by the user, chances are this will become a life creating process. This will actually continue to let you do what you do to the best of your capability. And if that happens, that means it is your Swadharma.
Fantastic. Dr. Soni, quick word. Dharma of an entrepreneur.
I think the dharma of an entrepreneur is to unlock potential.
Fantastic. Very nice. Dipti, quick one. Dharma of an entrepreneur.
Dharma of an entrepreneur is to be true to his purpose.
Be true to his purpose. Super. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I truly appreciate Dr. Tyagi, Dr. Kaipa, Dr. Soni, and Dipti for being here today. According to me, the dharma of the entrepreneur is another lovely shloka there which says, Atmanyeva cha santushtaha tasya karyam na vidyate, which means if you are able to perform things in a way that is creating a lot of happiness, then the karma that you perform is no longer a duty, but it is something that you will enjoy to do. I think each of us as entrepreneurs has this fundamental obligation, as Dr. Tyagi says, think big, is to create that joy, is to create that sense of purpose, because that is what people will remember so many years later. If we have today such interesting people, Dipti, who's been there for so many years, Dr. Tyagi, 35 years and 35 years in STPI, Dr. Kaipa even now talks very fondly of the work that he has done so many years ago in Apple. Dr. Soni talks about teaching and writing as something that drives him. I think what these panelists have shown us today is this, that to them, this is no longer a job. This is no longer a duty. It goes far beyond that. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's 9:02 and we will close the session officially right now.